contemporary photograph taken before they had met by his later associate and propagandist, Heinrich Hoffmann, seems to show Hitler among the cheering crowd on the Odeonsplatz in Munich on the 2nd of August 1914. He volunteered to fight in the Bavarian army and was recruited 2 weeks later into the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment, known as the List Regiment after the name of its commander. This unit was not a volunteer regiment as such, but consisted of a cross-section of mainly South Bavarian society, some of whom had volunteered, such as Hitler, others of whom were conscripted. It spent the next few weeks training, mainly in Munich itself, but also at Lechfeld Camp, south of Augsburg. He was taught to use the standard-issue rifle before being sent to support the German advance through Belgium and northern France. Hitler did not, in other words, react to the outbreak of war by disappearing. Instead, he immediately volunteered for the German, technically the Bavarian, army, an unusual choice. In August 1914, therefore, Hitler definitively turned his back not just on Austria-Hungary, but opted decisively for Germany. It was his first major documented political statement. The main enemy, Hitler now believed, lay across the Channel. His very first surviving letter after he joined up, to his former landlady, Anna Popp, in Munich, announces his hope that he would get to England, presumably as part of an invading force. Strikingly, Hitler did not target the Tsarist Empire to the east, even though it was at this point menacing East Prussia. Throughout the war, indeed, he made only a single, surviving, reference to the Eastern Front. Nor did he single out the French hereditary enemy. In focusing on Britain, Hitler may have been echoing the contemporary discourse of England hatred in Germany generally, and his unit in particular, or he may even have been ahead of it. A week later, when the List Regiment had arrived in Lille, northern France, they were assembled in the Place de Concert to hear an order by the Bavarian Crown Prince against the Englishmen. "We have now the fortune," they heard, "to have the Englishmen on our front, the troops of that people whose antagonism has been at work for so many years in order to surround us with a ring of enemies and strangle us." One way or the other, Hitler's expressed desire to get to grips with the British, long before he reached the front, and at a time when the British Expeditionary Force only represented a small fraction of the Allied troops facing Germany in the West, represents his second major political statement, and one which points to the future development of his worldview, based in large part on respect for and fear of British power. Not long after, the List Regiment duly encountered the British at Helluveldt, and then at Weizsäcker and Messines in Belgian Flanders. The story of the BEF in 1914 is traditionally seen as an unequal struggle with the German juggernaut. This is true enough in the broad sense, but it is important to remember that at the tactical level the picture was much more differentiated. The List Regiment's clash with men from the Yorkshire Regiment, the legendary Coldstream Guards, Black Watch, Grenadier Guards and Gordon Highlanders was a battle between amateurs and professionals. Some of the listers, among them Hitler himself, had had no military background at all prior to the war. With the exception of some of the officers, none were regulars. The BEF, by contrast, were experienced soldiers, many of whom had seen action before, and most of them were better and quicker shots than their German adversaries. Helluveldt was thus a profoundly unequal battle. In the circumstances, the List Regiment acquitted itself well, but it suffered horrendous casualties. Hitler himself participated in several frontal attacks, 3 if his own account is to be believed. He spoke of heaviest battles in the ranks, but said that eventually the English were beaten. The defeat, inflicted on the British, proved to be short-lived, however, as the Bavarians were ejected from Helluveldt soon after by the Worcesters. Hitler was promoted Gefreiter, private first class, and assigned as an orderly, dispatch runner, to the regimental staff. Since then, he claimed, "I can say that I risked my life daily and looked death in the eye."